I am the geek protagonist, and today, well, at least at this video, we are going to talk about the movie, the film that we've all been waiting for, The New Mutants. First, let's speak about who is in the movie. And all right, so you have Maisie Williams as Saintclair, aka Wolfsbane. You also have Charlie Heaton as Sam Guthrie, aka Cannonball. Alice Braga played Dr. Reyes. Blue Hunt played Daniel Moonstar, aka Mirage. Let's see if I can adjust this here. There we go. There we go. Okay. And I think her name is Anna Taylor-Joy, because this is acting up. It was working the whole time, and now it wants to act up. She was in Split. Oh, Henry Zaga is Roberto da Costa, or Bobby da Costa, aka Sunspot. And yeah, Anna Taylor basically played Iliana Rasputin. If that Rasputin name sounds familiar to you, that is because she is the sister of Colossus. And you got Adam Breach as Danny's father. The Smiling Man performance was done by Dustin Cedarhammer, but the voice was done by Marilyn Manson. The Wolf Dog was Chuck. And, you know, a few others. So, I'll talk about the movie piece by piece, give my assessment for it. Alright, so if you're wondering who these characters are, okay, so Saintclair, she wasn't called Wolfsbane in the film, that's the comic book name, but her name is Saintclair. She's a Scottish person that technically has a mutation that's like lycanthropy. Basically, she can go werewolf or she can go more dog and turn full dog. She is Scottish, a very religious character, Catholic. It does get portrayed in the movie. I don't feel like that's a heavy spoiler. I'm still going to try to do this in a Power Up review format, so bear with me. That's Saintclair. I'll just give an overview. Sam Guthrie does other stuff too. You kind of seen Rain do her thing in the commercial, so I didn't feel like it's a spoiler. So let me talk about the movie itself, what I felt, try to give it spoiler free, then I'll, the powering up, and then I'll give you a powered up review. So basically, you got the facility, you got a situation that's going on. They kind of play it up. It is an odd facility, a hospital per se, because there's not really, which you see this in the commercial, there's not really any staff. There's mainly that group and then them. There's an overarching plot that I gotta give them credit for. They actually kind of touched on it, and I think it was Apocalypse. Was it Apocalypse? It might have been X-Men Apocalypse. Yeah, I think it was X-Men Apocalypse. They touched on it a little bit there from that Wolverine situation. It also plays up and kind of harks back to Logan. So some of the latter films. So my interpretation of this is that this happened as the mutants started to go down. If you watch the X-Men series, you know what I'm talking about. So these were kind of, that's why they really played them up as the New Mutants. Because it felt like mutants weren't around as much as they used to be. From how it sounded, but it sounded like they were around enough that people knew who they were. The movie wasn't as horror driven as I was hoping it would be. It did have horror elements. It had horror enough that I can't say it wasn't like a horror film, but you know, you had your classics like Sunspot was the rich jock. You had Sam, who was the nice guy. You had Rain, who was the kind of the sweet girl. Danny, who was the new girl. Magic or Iliana, who was kind of the mean girl. And how they all kind of played it up, played through it. They touched a little bit on their past. Excuse me. And as they were going through it, I actually personally thought the bonding was very good and thought it was well done. I know some people probably would think that it's kind of cliche, but to me, a lot of horror films with teenagers are extremely cliche. So you usually have these people that check off the boxes. You got the jock, or the cool kid, the mean girl, the sweet girl, the innocent one. It checked off the boxes. They did have a little bit of brutality in it, nothing heavy. When they played up on stuff, they kind of try to play this thing as a mystery, but if you watched it, it got obvious very quickly if you just paid a little bit of attention. And they kind of changed a character or two around a little bit, and from the comic, and I felt it was not necessary. They did have that little moment of check the box, check the box, check the box kind of thing. But it wasn't heavy-handed, and it worked for what they were trying to do, but I felt they could have just kept it to the comic or added something. Now, I'll say it like this. There is a character named Richter. If they wanted to go down that route of checkbox, they could have used him. He was a part of New Mutants. He wasn't in the original group right away, but he did join the group. They could have just added him in there and kind of covered that already. I don't want to give things away. I know in one of the commercials, it kind of showed it a little bit. But still, I'd rather talk about that more in the spoiler, just in case anyone only seen like maybe one commercial or so. I did like their interaction. I did, however, feel like the trailer pushed the horror more than what was in the movie. It wasn't really scary. Things. It had a few things that were uncomfortable, and it did have horror elements. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, it had no horror. No, it had definitely horror elements, and there were enough elements that they could have made you uncomfortable, and it could have bothered you. But there was some things that were cool, but it was confusing because it was like, well, where did that come from? What exactly was the setup? How did that exactly happen? Why was that a thing? Kind of stuff, and it kind of foreshadowed. The mutant power manifestation I thought was actually well done. I'm going to say... No, I guess I'll save that for spoiler too. So, the movie had a solid story. It went through. I didn't find myself like, oh God, when is it going to be over? I actually sat through it and I was like, okay, this isn't too bad. You know, it was a bunch of teenagers, you know, doing teenage things. They're kind of locked in a facility. So it kind of had some Breakfast Club vibes to it. More than I thought it would. But when it harked back on some of the other events and situations happening, I did like how it interlocked. Admittedly, I thought that was cool. Now, they did have ideas for sequels because this was supposed to be part of a new trilogy. And it kind of, I'm going to say the way I've been seeing everything, it's probably not going to do that. But I would have liked to see more, especially when I saw what they were talking about. And if I can bring it up here. So there was going to be something with one of the characters' fathers. And I know who he is. He has ties to the Hellfire Club. You kind of get little hints of it in this movie about the rich kid kind of leads to something else. I thought that would have been interesting. And the way he was... So Boone and Leo actually had a pretty interesting idea. I'm trying to find it here. They were going to end up in another country and then they'll with the situation of being in Brazil. The one sequel would have been the first film. He considered it and called this a rubber reality supernatural horror movie. Basically, reality is kind of messing with you, kind of thing. Kind of like as if you went into a movie and a demon was messing with your head, that kind of thing. The second film would have been an alien invasion, featuring the character Warlock. If you ever watched the X-Men 90s cartoon, boom. Then you would know about the Phalanx. Warlock had a situation as a part of that. That would have been something very interesting. Warlock is also a fun character. So that would have been a cool change of it. And then the last one would have been inspired by the 1989 comic book crossover Inferno. Oh, Karma was going to be introduced. There's a character named Karma in the New Mutants. And basically they were going to go they had a 3-part plan, and it actually did sound like a very solid plan, dealing with Karma. Now, the Infernal one, if I remember correctly, yeah, I'm checking it right now. It had the Uncanny X-Men, X-Force, Exterminators, Excalibur, and the New Mutants. Kind of like what you see House of X right now, and all the X books. Kind of the same thing, but they would have had it with, Darkchild, the Goblin Queen, Hobgoblin. Basically, this crossover had a big thing, and it actually dealt with Mr. Sinister. So we would have probably seen a few of the X-Men, probably from either the X-Men First Class or something like that. Maybe a couple of other characters, we would have seen them join in. Something where it would have been like probably a nice contingent of characters, but not over the top too big. And with that, they would have actually paid off the whole XS or SS corporation thing, with Sinister by that third film, because they trickled Sinister throughout those couple movies, and Mr. Sinister was on the ticket to be the next villain of a franchise, so they would have played that up when you saw a little bit on Logan and you saw a little bit in the others, and if it's in the time frame I think it's in, then it would have happened where Sinister would have crossed in. The movie did play well. Like I said, it was a teenage movie. It was nothing over the top. It wasn't new. I wasn't like, oh my god, it's the greatest. I was excited to see it. I watched it. It's usually, if you sit through it, I don't think you're going to be like, oh, like how Dark Phoenix was, where Dark Phoenix had like 5 good parts, maybe 6, throughout the entire movie. Where it's like, okay, that's good. Oh, they went back to bed. This one, I actually felt I sat through it just fine, doing something like that. Now, I'm going to give my rating, and then after that, this will be the spoiler part, because there's a lot of things I actually do want to get into that I feel is spoiler territory. So, I'm going to say this, on a good side, very middle. It was kind of plain. It was fine. Like it wasn't like I watched it, I didn't hate it. I was fine with it. I was like, oh, okay, I'm glad all right, cool, I watched it, kind of thing. I didn't go, oh my god, I'm so glad I did it. I was like, I'm glad I saw it, So I'm gonna say this movie definitely needed bacon. Good side of bacon, not burnt bacon. Like, it was enjoyable enough that down the line I could watch it again. Like, it wasn't like it was unwatchable or anything. The problem was, it was fine. And for what they were trying to do, especially with a horror film and in the concept, I do personally feel they needed more than fine. But I'd rather take fine than terrible or really bad or something. You can sit through it. It had some good scenes. Like, it definitely had some good parts. And I will say this. The reason why I said it's good bacon, once it kind of kicks into gear, it actually does turn into a better film. Towards the end, there is a thing that they changed here or there that I understood why they did it for the film, but I think it would have been better if they kept it closer to the comic. So, yeah, I'm gonna say this film, it was fine. It wasn't so like, oh my gosh. I did like seeing the happy guys. Like I said, they foreshadowed it. You already seen the happy guys with the smiley face. I didn't fully understand why they were there per se. I knew their reasoning, but I didn't understand the significance of them, and they don't really explain it. You'll see what I'm talking about. They were a cool thing. They were nice to see. I liked them. I actually thought they fit very well. It's just I don't know why they were there per se. I think I have an idea of where they were hinting they were coming from, but I didn't know. And Iliana did show a surprise that I was very happy about. So now the spoiler is coming in. Oh, and by the way, the happy guys were voiced by Marilyn Manson, if I did not say that. Spoiler coming your way in 3, 2, 1. You have been warned. Okay, so here's how the characters work. Rain Sinclair, aka Wolfsbane, like I said, werewolf, religious, they made her and Danny gay. Why? In the comics, her and Danny are extremely close, but it's also because Danny has a thing with animals. She can relate very well to animals. And so when she's in her lichen form, which you do find out there's a thing about that, Danny can actually speak to her in her lichen form because Rain has an issue where sometimes her wild side takes over. And Danny can actually speak to any type of mutants that are like lichen. If they turn animals, she can speak in their language. They're supposed to be very close. Now, Rain has a thing for Sam in the comics for a while, actually. I think later later when I got X Factor, she did date Madrox. There was a situation with that. Madrox being multiple man, if you don't know. And she had a little stint with Richter, but Richter was trying to find himself, so he was very awkward around her. And I kind of just didn't like that. And it wasn't that they did anything heavy-handed. It wasn't like it was like, oh my goodness. I didn't even hate how it was displayed, so please don't get me wrong. And it's not a, oh my god, checkbox. No, it felt like a checkbox because if they wanted to do this, the character Richter actually had the first, if I remember correctly, the first open kiss scene in Marvel history, where he actually kissed Shatterstar, and he is extremely openly gay. I actually think Marvel handled his gayness and how he came out and everything actually probably the best out of pretty much all their characters. I really liked when Richter became gay. He ended up being with Shatterstar, and I thought that was great because there was always kind of weird hints, and it just felt that way. So when they did it, it was like all these years finally, and it just worked. And I'm like, you guys could have actually brought in Richter and maybe another character who was also gay, like Anole, that people seem to like, that you guys seem to ignore, or even Northstar, and they could have had something. You guys in the X-Men thing, you already kind of changed up stuff anyway, so you could have played this out where maybe Richter did something when he was with his boyfriend, and that's why he's at the facility, because he his powers was like Earthquake. It's kind of similar to Avalanche, but he can like point at something and shoot the vibrations too. So I felt that was a little odd. Like, why did you have to take the people who are really close friends, and your thought was, well, let's make them gay, when you have people in the New Mutants that are gay, and use those characters instead? And that's the tokenism that I notice a lot of people have an issue with. It's like, you have the character, use the character that you have already, that's already gay, that's a part of the team. Outside of that, though, like I said, they handled the relationship well. It didn't feel heavy-handed. It felt pretty natural and stuff. So as filmmakers, I'm giving them props, but as storytellers, I'm knocking off a few points for that. It just felt like they were kind of doing more of a check mark kind of thing. Now you have Magic, Iliana Rasputin, who has interdimensional teleportation. She can manipulate magic. I know she has like sorcerer abilities from Sorcerer Supreme, which, by the way, her and Danny in the movie were kind of beefing, but in all actuality, it should have been Magic and Rain, Wolfsbane, because she has a strong religious belief, even though they call her like a witch and stuff like that. And seeing Iliana mess with magic actually used to make her uncomfortable and not feel right because it was magic and that was against religion kind of thing. But they wanted to do Danny's thing for some reason, to create the tension. New girl, once again, wasn't bad, was executed fine, but you kind of could have kept it the other way and it would have been an easier draw in. Um, yeah, I know Richter was in Logan, by the way. So what? They could have moved him back to that facility and did his memory, or they could have played up something with that. And X-Men continuity is kind of all jumbled up anyway. But they could have literally played it because Richter did have a thing where he lost it, but they could have had him made him have memory issues, and that was the whole thing. His memory issues was there, and it kind of did show him. Actually, you did see him in the thing when he like pushed the stuff. He was actually vibrating the stuff that was Richter. So they kind of did hint to him, but they could have did a little more with that. She could have said, "Hey, I seen you in this thing doing this." He's like, "I don't remember being there." There's a whole lot of factors they could have played in with a little bit more. The movie's only 90-something minutes long, so they could have added a little, like a 5-6 minutes throughout, and it would have worked. Magic has her soul sword, armor. She can go to limbo. Now, they had Lockheed. I love Lockheed. I love Kitty Pryde. I was so worried we weren't going to get Lockheed ever in a movie, and we got him. That was cool. And it's like Lockheed is in her dimension, can come to life, and she can activate him if she uses the power of limbo, it looks like, which I thought that was a cool way of handling his character. Now I know some people probably ask why Lockheed with Magic, who are comic book fans, instead of Kitty Pryde. Well, the stories, for one, did not go that route, and number two, I think the other reason why you did it is because a lot of people may not remember. There was a story with Belasco, who created this. What were they? It was like soul gems or something like that. Whatever it was, I remember. It was. He did like it was like bloodstones, and it kind of bonded her and Kitty Pryde with this psychic bond and a special kind of closeness. And what happens is by giving her Lockheed, it kind of tips the hat to her with Kitty Pryde kind of thing. So, and it actually worked because it made Magic feel even more mystical. Especially when he's like, that thing is magic, and she like, so am I. So I thought that was a really good setup. And when you saw Lockheed in action, I was very happy about that because Lockheed is awesome. Lockheed is just a great, really cool character. Then you also had Cannonball. He propels himself. He becomes invulnerable when he does, but it seemed like in the movie he kind of didn't, because like when he was hitting himself, you could see he was like abusing himself. In this story, he was in the mine, he killed his father. In the comics, his whole family just seems to be a big thing with mutants. Like all his siblings, I think he had like 6 or 7 siblings, all of them are mutants. Like it just kind of just happens that way, where his family just has a big thing about the mutant gene. And also, if I remember correctly, his father was alive, but they wanted to give him a little bit more tragic. But I think he did one of the siblings did accidentally kill the dad. I don't think it was Sam though. I could be wrong on that one. Geek protagonists sometimes can be off. He may get his stories jumbled up. But Sam, for the most part, is kind of the nice guy. And I kind of think they should have just kept with the Rain and him liking each other thing. They didn't have to do the check mark thing. Danny also is not gay or lesbian or part of the letter community pretty much. Whatever term is proper at this time. But she's not a part of that community either. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do, my thing is that if you want to do these characters and you want to make them this way, instead of taking this character or that character and swapping them, get one of the characters that actually are that thing. So if they're bi, if they're gay, if they're a lesbian, if they're trans, get a character, use that character. Don't make a character that's already established and not it. That's annoying. I want those characters to shine. I want North Star to get shine. I want Nole to get shine. There's a Richter. There's a lot of characters that are a part of the letter community in Marvel and DC. Use those characters. Stop going, well, these characters will be known a little more than this, so I'm going to make that character gay instead. No. Use the other character. A lot of people don't have as much attachment to the other characters, so you could really build them up into your own groove. Now, what they also did was they did Dr. Cecilia Reyes and kind of really changed her. They made her a bad guy with the Axis Corporation, when in the comics she's actually a doctor. I think she's a surgeon. What was she? And I think a regular doctor, like a pediatrician or whatever. She's worked with Beast a few times. They have a very close relationship. In this, they made her a villain. And they kept her force field powers. But she now like really had control of her powers. Like, she had powers over the facility. She had powers where she could put them on people. When I remember in the comics, it was more of herself. So it kind of... And she didn't want to be heavily into heroics in the comics. She kind of did a few at circumstance, and when she could get out, she got out. So I found that kind of a little odd. Like, they changed the character and made them fully villainous and stuff. And I was kind of like, oh, why did you do that? I mean, I get it. She worked for the role. Everyone in the movie also did really well. So please don't think I'm bashing the whole movie. It's just that I'm like, you could have used another character and gotten that same result. Like, I don't know, Sinister? Or one of Sinister's lackeys, like Sugarman. Maybe he hit himself or something. So, I mean, eh. Now, you have Danny Moonstar, who is also known as a character Mirage. I think right now, currently in the comics, she's a Valkyrie. I don't know if she still is a Valkyrie. But without her Valkyrie powers... she has telepathy. She has a danger sense. She could create illusions. She can make sonic bows, arrows, bullets, and bolts. She was empathic and telepathic link with animals, which made her enough that she could master Cerebro. She wasn't like a telepath, but she had some low-level telepathic abilities. But because she had to manage so much of her mental state, she actually is very good with, like, so if a telepath tries to mess with her, they actually have a difficult time because she technically has a form of telepathy. It's just with animals, and she can feel when an animal feels stuff. And that gives her a lot of abilities in her brain that could counter because they wouldn't know how to really handle that. She used to have quantum energy manipulation to a degree where I think she can mess with, like, time a little, but I think that got burned out. And she had the objects of psionic powers, so think of like hard light kind of thing, like a Green Lantern. She could manifest only one illusion at a time, too. So it was more of illusions that weren't really, to my memory, interactive. So she would, like, put psionic things into them or push it. So in the movie, they kind of changed her ability to where she made you face your greatest fear until it killed you. Which I was hoping that maybe in the future they would kind of play in her other abilities and show that she has more, because that's not really an ability of hers. That's actually this guy, I think his name was Phobia? Well, I remember in Avengers Academy, I can't remember his name right now. I really liked the character too. He had black hair and stuff. He figured out he would actually be a good therapist to get you over trauma because he would reflect how you were feeling. And if it was fear, he could reflect it, but he could walk you through it. And he actually became a therapist. I thought he had a very great story arc. I just can't remember his name right now. But he was in the Initiative storyline. If you look up the Avengers, you'll find him. He had a very interesting power. He had a thing of manifesting your fears uncontrollably. Not so much Danny. Danny literally couldn't look in your mind and go, I'm in your brain. It was just illusions. So, thought that was odd, convenient, but a little odd. I think they were going to give her other abilities if they got to make the other two movies where she started realizing she has psionic abilities. Not just that, because they did kind of register she had a lot of psionic power. And then Roberto Acosta, aka Sunspot, he has super strength, flight, sun absorption. He could rechannel heat and light manipulation. He could do concussive blast like every person does instead of just burning. Plasma emission. He also was in X-Men Days of Future Past. You've seen him. He got ripped. He got frozen and then ripped in half, if I remember correctly, by the Sentinels. That made no sense. With instead of it being Morph's abilities, it was Mystique's, but somehow her shapeshifting turned into I can copy all your powers, even though that's not an ability that she has at all, and that was weird. Still love the movie, but that was weird, and that's one of the things that used to annoy me about the X-Men films. Even in this one, they would change things out of convenience instead of trying to write a story that would work better, to make it fit better. They were just like, let's just do this. I also had an issue with Demon Bear to a degree. Demon Bear was supposed to be her parents in the comics, and for some reason, they kind of did this thing where he was just a manifestation of her fear, and he turned into this giant, great, big bear. He looked cool, but Demon Bear is actually the spirits of the, I think he was the Apache spirits? But I know Magic Soul Sword messed with him. I'm trying to see here. I got it here. In the Team to the Badlands. Yeah, he was in a place called the Badlands. He got messed with. He was Native American. Oh, and he took over two people. He could actually make minions. So he turned two characters into Native American warriors. Demon Bear reappeared and battled Warpath, who was in one of the movies as well. Later, he was cleansed, but he found out he went crazy because he got stabbed by a magic thing. Demon later possessed Bishop, been driven out by Psylocke. Once Bishop was freed, Psylocke takes the now docile Bear as a companion, because I think he got a lot smaller too. That was kind of the overview. But basically, with Demon Bear was her parents, and it was like the manifestation of the spirits, and he used her parents, I think, their abilities, and he would tell Danny, I killed them and I would kill you, and he would actually haunt her. And he was trying to do it, and they had to fight him off together. Kind of like what they did in the movie. And then when Danny stepped up to him, her parents came out. And Demon Bear got pushed back, and then slowly but surely Demon Bear got cleansed and became a normal thing. But Demon Bear wasn't just a manifestation of her fear. Demon Bear was actually something that I kind of wish they would have kept him as that character. I actually would have liked to see him turn back into a more regular sized bear and kind of deal with them and be that plane. But at the same time, they did kind of hint to it by saying he was magic. They did kind of hint to maybe he was something. But the problem is, since they established the whole demon inside of her, it kind of felt more like that. So but there was some good stuff. The action was good. I thought the character interaction was very good. The kids doing their antics and doing little tricks and putting to sleep at Breakfast Club, see if she's asleep and sneaking by. I thought the character development overall was good, with a few little missteps here and there. So yeah, I say if you get the chance, watch it. If you don't want to watch it in movie theaters, nah, you don't have to, unless you really, really want to see it. You should and can wait till it comes to video on demand. I think it's worth a watch. I didn't hate it. I enjoyed it when I watched it. I just didn't go, oh my God, it didn't blow my mind. But I was like, okay, I'm not mad that I saw this movie. It was fine. It was so-so, it was fine. That's kind of the problem. It needed to be more than that. And it was just like, okay, it felt like an even kill kind of movie. So I think I'm going to put this one away because I went on long enough. This is The Geek Protagonist. You stay safe, you stay healthy, you stay real. And I'll see ya. New Mutants. Hey, thank you for visiting my channel. This is The Geek Protagonist. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please, it'll really help me out in the channel if you actually share these videos. If you like what I'm doing, please hit that bell notification. Hit it, click. This way you won't miss any of my videos. Also, there's a thing on there that says personal and all. Hit the all. This way you'll get them every time for the notifications. I'm trying to, grow, trying to do commentary about what's going on. And I want to thank you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay real. This is The Geek Protagonist. I'm out, and I'll see you.